Hello and welcome to ARC 360's Looking Ahead digital event series. Before starting, we'd just like to say thank you to our corporate partners, the ASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, EMAX, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Merca, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, Innovation Group, Indasa, the Green Park Specialists, and our latest partner, Casco. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
So welcome along, everybody, and great to have you all join us. Obviously, we're coming across to Doug Kirk in a second, but just first and foremost, the disclaimer for today. So the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee, or other group or individual. Please respect any all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. So welcome, everybody, and welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolute pleasure to have you along, my friend. So slightly different format. Obviously, those who are joining us, thank you very much for returning. If you've joined us on the webinars previously, functionality-wise, just a quick conversation through there. So the Q&A, fire away the questions in there, and hopefully we'll get round to a few of those at the end. And I'm sure Doug is only too keen to answer and get involved in that. The chat function, again, please use that to send in any messages. Again, sat on this side of the cameras, it's always nice to know that people are engaged, awake, and listening in. So if you agree or disagree, I'm sure Doug would like to see your comments in there. So thank you very much for joining us. And all I'm going to do right now is hand straight across to Doug.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark. I'm just going to play my screen, my presentation, if that's okay. And just so that everybody knows, this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. I'm not the kind of PowerPoint guy. And as Mark alluded to, I am more than happy to take questions, disagree or agree. We might agree on a few things, we'll probably disagree on a lot, but that's fine, it's not a problem. So firstly, let me thank everybody for attending this session on behalf of AR360 and myself. I hope you find this session informative as well as thought-provoking. And regardless of what part of the collision repair industry that you come from, I hope that we're talking to everybody, not just body shops, but MSOs, OEMs, single operators, everybody alike. So, as I said previously, my name is Doug Kirk. I am the Global Business Development Manager for Innovation for the Sherwin-Williams Company. And innovation for us within Sherwin is anything that touches the value stream. So that can be product, obviously, innovation when it comes to digital solutions, data management, data mining, equipment, processes, augmented reality, absolutely anything. But firstly, I'd like to apologize to everybody. If I feel a little bit excited, a little bit frenetic, a little bit like a caged lion, it's only because I've been stuck in my kitchen for the last 8 months due to the global pandemic. It's not because I've had too much coffee or too much beer. It's a bit too early in the morning for that, to be honest. So that's my introduction over. I've been in the industry all my life. Started off as a painter, moved into ICI, then worked for a company called Junior Industry, moved to AkzoNobel, worked for LKQ, and now I'm currently working for Sherwin-Williams. So been in this industry a long time. Anybody that's on this webinar that knows me knows that I have an opinion about almost everything, and I'm more than willing to share it and stand up and debate my thought process. So let's move on. To say that COVID has changed the world would be an understatement of the decade, I think, to be honest. And regardless of what part of the industry you've been in, again, whether it be paint manufacturer, body shop, distribution, OEM, whoever, it's changed. Everything has changed out of all recognition. Some for the better, some for the worse. We've suffered furloughs in this country, and there's been furloughs elsewhere in the world, but they've been dealt with slightly differently. I think we're all used to digital meetings now, Zoom, Teams, WebEx, you name it, we're all doing it. We've got contactless customer service experiences going on, where we're decontaminating the car before we work on it and doing it after we've worked on it. And I go back to the digital innovation. We really have used the digital innovation as a communication tool. I want to talk a little bit later on about the digital communication or the digital world, on how we use it to help our business, how we use that digitization of data to help us do what we need to do. I'm also sure that everybody here is very familiar or has speed dial for Deliveroo and Uber Eats and everything else, or has watched everything on Netflix that's due to be watched. And you know what? The one thing that we really have learned a lot about over the last little while has definitely been the cost of doing business. And I've also heard a lot of people saying, I wish we could go back to pre-COVID. Yeah, I wish we could do that. Well, I have a little bit of a thought there. Were the good old days really the good old days? I'm not so sure if the good old days were the good old days. And if I just look at my life and I look at evolution in life, and I look at, do I want to go back to when it was the BBC, ITV and BBC Two? So BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, then Channel 4 came along, Channel 5, then we got digital, we got cable, we got Sky. Do we want to go back to a world pre-dishwasher? Do we want to go back to a world pre-cruise control? Do we want to go back to a world pre-social media? Oh, okay, right. Maybe that's a bit too much. Maybe we want to go back to a world that is pre-social media. But what I would say, and I've said this all my life, and anybody that's spoken to me will realize this saying: if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. And to me, COVID has been really quite interesting. Being able to sit at home, to be able to digest things, to not be caught up in the whirlwind of daily activity where I'm solving problems, not only my own problems, but everybody else's problems, or helping solve them. Not that I help solve a lot of problems, but anyway, I don't want to look back. And I think companies that go forward and don't look back are the ones that will ultimately survive and thrive through this. And Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor is it the most intelligent. It's the one that adapts the quickest. And as I said earlier, I'm sure everybody has almost depleted the entire Netflix catalog during this COVID-19 pandemic. But you know what? Netflix is a really interesting story, because Netflix was formed in 1997, which is not really that long ago, and they're a global entity now. But back in the day, Blockbuster owned the home entertainment market. Netflix wanted to come in, and Netflix tried, and they were about 150 million customers, and they were really needing to get to somewhere in the region of 1 billion customers around the world, which is kind of hard. But anyway, there were about 100 million customers. And they went to Blockbuster and said, we've got this platform that we want to share with you, and we want to sell you it for $50 million. And Blockbuster said, nah, what you've got is never going to catch on. It never is. Well, interestingly enough, how many Blockbusters do you see today? None. Actually, unless you're in Bend in the US, a little town called Bend, because there is only one left. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Netflix, remember, a couple of 3 years before that, had offered Blockbuster their entire platform for $50 million. Today, Netflix are worth $160 billion a year in North America. You know what? Blockbuster didn't adapt. Netflix did. Netflix adapted and evolved. That's a lesson for us all. A lesson for every single person. They seen what was coming and they acted on it. Now, Let me put that into perspective for us in a body shop. I am going to ask everybody on this call to imagine this scenario where I take your motor vehicle and I mask up the windshield, I mask up the side windows, I leave the back window completely unmasked, and I ask you to drive going forward with the car in drive or in a forward gear, going forward, looking out your rear view window, and I want you to go somewhere where you know well, whether that be the pub, whether that, well, probably not now since they're all shut, your place of work, the library. Not sure many people go to the library a lot, but I want you to go somewhere where you know. Oh, but just for a caveat, I am going to take every single vehicle off the road right now. I guarantee you could make that journey, looking out the back window going forward. It's going to be painful. It's going to be stressful. It's going to take quite a while. You're not going to hit any apexes. When you get there, you're going to thank the heavens that you got there without crashing, but you're going to do it. Now, let's do a reset. I'm going to do the same thing, and this time I'm going to demask your side window. So you can look out the side windows. You can't roll the window down. You can't look forward. You can only look out the side view window. And you can look out the back window. And I'm going to ask you to do exactly the same again. You are going to hit an occasional apex. You're going to make that journey much quicker. It's going to be slightly less stressful, but it's still going to be stressful. That I don't think anybody would disagree with. Now, I'm going to give you the panacea. I'm going to say I'm going to demask your windshield, and I'm going to ask you to do exactly the same thing. Drive forward, nothing else on the road. You will get to your destination super fast. You'll hit every apex. You won't crash. It'll be very unstressful, and it'll be a pleasure to have nothing else on the road. What we've just been on is the data road trip. So looking out your rear view window, through your mirror, log data, things that have already happened. Looking out your side window, real-time data, things that are happening as you pass them. And looking out your front window, future and predictable data, being able to see what's down the road, not quite round the corner, but definitely what's down the road. So when you look at data in that way, how many times are you asked, did you make money last month, and not be able to answer that question until the 4th or the 5th or the 10th? In some countries, it's the 14th. God forbid that you're not measuring it every month. God forbid you're measuring it every quarter. And heaven help us if we're doing it every year. So looking forward, understanding what's coming, that is driven by two of the other metrics that we just explained, lag and real time. Knowing what historically happened and knowing what's happening now, you can predict to a certain extent what's going to happen and what's going on. And you can adjust your business to be able to do that. And that's what I want to explore a little bit here today. Think about this. If everybody has watched the Olympics, and we've watched the swimming event in the Olympics, and we watch the guy out in front, and there's always a blue line or a purple line or a green line in front of that guy. That line donates the world record and where he is in relation to the world record. Imagine that is your cost of doing business. Imagine that is your break even in your business. And you could see that all the time. You can get that from historical and real-time data and be able to predict where you are at any given time. And anybody who has a mobile phone these days and using GPS, this is a very familiar sight to us. This is real-time data to give you predictable outcomes. There is a traffic jam on the route that you normally take, and it sends you the wrong way. How many times have we said, I know better than GPS, I'm not going to go. Why is it asking me to turn right here? Why is it asking me to do that? Because 50 yards down the road, when you get down the road and you turn the corner, all of a sudden you find out that there's a crash there, and you go, geez, I wish I'd listened to my GPS. I use something called Waze, and Waze to me is an absolute godsend, because I realize that whilst I only go to Edinburgh Airport and come home from Edinburgh Airport, mainly, I know that if Waze says don't go the freeway or the motorway, go this way, I go that way because I know Waze knows better than I do, because it knows what's happening down the line and I can't see it. So I follow it religiously. So that's all about data. But the question I want to ask is data really king or queen? I have to be politically correct. That's why I put queen in here. There is a myriad of data kicking around. We have it. It comes out of our pores. We have cycle time. We have key to key. We have paint and consumable margin. We have labor margin. We have every conceivable piece of data that we want. But is it really king? I'd offer the opinion that no, it's not. It's not king. It's what you do with that data that really counts. It really is. And I'll also offer a different opinion to most other people. Everybody here has heard of a KPI, a key performance indicator. How many people have heard of a DBI, a demonstrable business improvement? Because only when you take the data that you are getting readily and you make changes to your business, you adapt and you evolve it to give you the most optimal, not the maximum or the minimum, the most optimal result, will your business thrive. And I'll come into optimization later on when I've finished this PowerPoint. So, be prescribed. What does that mean? Yeah. Look at the data that counts to you and your customers, internal and external alike. That means your internal customers, your people, and your external customers, your work providers, or the people that drive the car. Measure twice, cut once. My father was a carpenter, a joiner, and he said, measure twice, cut once. Be prepared. Be prepared. Things change. Be agile. We are agile as a race of people. When it's raining, we put rain clothes on. So I wear a lot of rain clothes in Scotland. So but be prepared. Be prepared for whatever's going to change in your business. When the car park's empty or the car park is full, change your business methodology. Above all, be the king or the queen of your data. There is benefits in measuring yourself against a peer, but unless you understand what that peer does and what that peer is doing, that data is largely irrelevant to measure yourself against it.
Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying this webinar. Just a quick thank you once again to all of our corporate partners and partners on screen now. Now back to the show.
So, what does agile mean? What does it really mean to us? And what does it mean to the industry? So, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, my PowerPoint, and I'm going to show everybody my ugly face. Just give me 1 second. There we go. So it might take a second to fire up, Mark. So if I'm stood still, which I am, I apologize. So let me just.
No problem. You're still not visible with us just yet, but it's on its way, I'm sure.
I realize that, and I don't know why it's not doing what it said it'd do, but I'll carry on anyway, because we have a very finite amount of time, and I hope that I eventually pop back up. So, what does being agile actually mean? There we go. I'm back in the house. Sorry, everyone, for the glare of my head. But as I say, I've been in this kitchen for the last 8 months. Yeah, Mark, I see you've got slightly more than I've got, but that's okay. So, what does agile mean? What does agile mean to us in the industry? And I mean everybody in the industry, not just body shops. Agile means understanding what the cost of doing business is. What is my cost of doing business? What is my break even? What do I need to do to open the doors and do no work? That's one point. The other one is, what is my operational output? What do I buy and what do I sell? In this industry, we buy and sell three main things. We buy labor, we buy parts, and we buy paint and materials. And each one of them contributes a little bit to breaking even. Each one of those margins added together gets us to break even. So knowing the percentage and knowing the contribution that each one of them plays is vitally important to being able to understand, like that little guy in the Olympics who's swimming along looking for the world record, knowing where he is either behind the world record or in front of the world record. That's a great thing. And I think if anybody remembers when Michaela, I think his name is, the runner, did the marathon, and he had a line in front of him that was projected, a little infrared line in front of him that was projected to break the world record. And he had pacemakers that came in and came out, and he beat that world record in a time that nobody could ever imagine. He got under 1.5 hours, I think it was. A huge success. Why did he do that? Because he knew the pace he needed to run at. He knew what he was doing. That's really, really, really important. Think about McDonald's. How many people go into a McDonald's during the day? Yep. If you go in at a non-peak time, you have to wait if you want a Royale with cheese, to use a Pulp Fiction terminology. If you want a Royale with cheese, you have to wait. Yep. But if you go in at a peak time, 9 o'clock in the morning, you walk up, you go, I'll have a Royale with cheese, and they give you one. Why is that? Why can McDonald's predict? Did they watch you getting out of your bed in the morning saying, I'm going to go for a burger? No, they didn't. I'm going to go for a McMuffin. No, they didn't. They didn't do any of that. You know what they did? They were able to understand log data, and they were able to predict when the footfall was coming in. No different to pubs, restaurants, everybody in the consumer business. So why don't we? Why aren't we able to do it? Oh, maybe because Mrs. Smith won't crash her car when we want her to crash her car. I wish she would. It would make my life and our life much easier. However, we can't control that, but we can control a bunch of other things. We can't control, when we have Mrs. Smith's car, the actions that we take. So there's a couple of things that we need to do. We need to look at optimization. How do I optimize my business? I work for a paint company, and everybody would think, well, hold on a second, Doug. You know what? Your goal is to sell paint. Well, is it really? When it's only less than 10% of the profit that somebody could get? Why wouldn't I want to help you with your labor? Why wouldn't I want to do that? Because every labor hour you sell, I sell paint. So just maximizing your paint margin kind of makes no sense to me. I could give you any paint margin you like, or we can give you any paint margin you like. Any of your suppliers can. Yeah, that comes with two things: discount or a lower starting price. Easy. Really simple. However, does that help your business survive? Not necessarily. I know that I could give someone one disc to sand the side of a car down, and they would take longer to do it than they would if they had 5 discs. There comes a point where the cost of the disc and its utilization and its effectiveness is way outweighed by the cost of the labor. And that can be the same as parts and painting materials. So we've got to be agile in our thinking. I'll give you an example. John Parker was on with Mark a while ago, and Mark, you said that you've never heard anybody use Formula One analogies. Well, there's a myriad of those things, right? Formula One sometimes slow people down. In the day when we had refueling, Formula One used to slow their drivers down. Slow their drivers down so that they could go longer with the little amount of fuel that they had left in their tank before they came in and filled up. Tire degradation. Anybody that watched Lewis Hamilton 2 weekends ago or last weekend, I can't remember when it was, because I've been stuck in here for almost 8 months and I feel like a caged lion and time just flies by. But think about what Lewis Hamilton did. Yeah, he was able to run longer than anybody else on a set of tires that were completely screwed. Yeah, why? Because he didn't waste them at the beginning. He took his time to get where he was going. He built up his speed. He built everything up. And Lance Armstrong, Lance Stroll. What did Lance Stroll do? He tried to get back to the lead as quick as he could and burned his tires out. Bad thought processes, non-optimized thought processes. We as a business and we as people need to figure out how we optimize. And you know what? Digitization, everybody says to me that digitization is a complex, complicated piece of technology. You know what? Complicated and complex are two different things. Complex doesn't have to be complicated. Your complex margins, labor, paint, and parts, are not complicated. They're easy. They're simple to understand. Really simple. You just need to understand how much work you've got coming in and how much work you've got to get out and what you're passing, or when you pass, your break even. Imagine being able to know at 3 o'clock in the afternoon if you made money that day. That would be really neat, isn't it? You know what? I know body shops around this world that are doing that today, right now. They know. They know even by the hour if they're making money or not, because they're looking at their operational output. They are that guy in the swimming pool looking at the world record and measuring it as a break even. It's how Walmart do their business. Walmart know that they need over 30,000 customers a day to come through certain areas. That's how they do their business. They get people in by doing that. And again, let's think about this also. Think about efficiency. I laugh at this because people tell me that I've got a guy that's 200% efficient. Okay, how much is he utilized? He's 200% efficient, but he's 50% utilized. So he's 100% efficient then. He's not 200%, he's 100. You just don't have the processes or whatever to keep him working at the same pace at 200 for the time that he needs to work at the same pace. That's not his fault, that's your fault. He's 200% efficient. And think about this another way. Think about that guy that's 200% efficient and think about him doing 3 jobs at once. I don't know of anybody that can work on 2 cars at once. We can certainly flip between 1 or 2 cars, but we can't work on 2 cars at once. Well, we'd have to park them so close to each other that we'd be sanding them down like this. It really doesn't make a great deal of sense to be able to give somebody 3 cars so that they can make money, increase your WIP, and you don't make any money. And you know what gives you the information that you need? The data that you already have. You already have this data. So if you're a distributor and you are not working with an inventory management program, and you've got your customers that are demanding all their inventory on day one, all the paint materials on day one of the month because they don't want to pay for it the previous month. And trust me, I know body shops that stop painting cars around the world just because they've reached their paint budget. How crazy is that? Shouldn't the paint budget be linked to the amount of hours that you're producing and not a flat sum? You know what? That's a little bit like, I talk about cruise control and the not having cruise control in the past. You know what? Imagine this is your cruise control. Imagine you're driving along the road, you've got your foot hard down on the pedal, yep, you're going as fast as you can, and then you haul the handbrake up to get to 70 miles an hour. That's an insane form of cruise control. But body shops, we in this industry, we do that. We have Sherwin-Williams, first time I'll mention them, right? Sherwin-Williams have our own distribution in North America. And we own our own distribution. And yet we fall into the same trap everybody else does. People not buying things on a month because they want it to go into the next month, because that'll help their profitability. People finishing cars on a Friday on the last day of the month and staying there till 12 o'clock at night to get the money in. But the last time I looked, the average repair cycle, if your average repair cycle in any part of the world is over 5 days, what relevance is Monday through Friday? If your cycle time is over 5 days, why bring it in on a Monday? Customer doesn't want to lose it over the weekend. You know what? Data will tell you that if your cycle time is 7 days, she's going to lose it over the weekend anyway. So it's kind of an insane thought process not to be able to look at that data, not to be able to be agile. And agility, and I'll finish with this point, right? And maybe we'll have some questions or whatever. But agility is not about changing for the sake of changing. It's about looking at the outside environment and saying, what is best for me and my business here? And I'll give you an example. When your parking lot or your car park is empty, yep, as best you possibly can, repair as much as you possibly can. And when your car park is absolutely full and you are way over your agreed SLA cycle time, replace as much as you can, as is physically possible within your SLA, as is physically possible with your work provider's service level agreement. But look to that and change your way of thinking and how you work, because it makes all the sense in the world to look outside. I'll finish with this one story. I once met a body shop manager. I was in his body shop. He was on his phone for longer than I could talk to him, which annoyed me because I like to talk, as you can probably tell. And he put his phone down and I said, how many times do you charge that up in a day? And he went, it's always on charge. I said, okay, I said, you know what? You know what I'd like to do just for giggles. You know what? I was going to say something else here, but just for giggles, I'd like you to run that phone down today, and I'd like you to charge it up overnight, and I'd like you to come in the morning, and I'd like you to turn it on, and I'd like you to answer every phone call that you do, and I'd like you to tell me when it runs out. So he phoned me up and said, I got to lunchtime. I said, okay. I said, so tomorrow I want you to get to 3 o'clock. But you know what I want you to do? I want you to write down all the phone calls that you take and all the actions that come out of those phone calls and all the phone calls that you have to make after that phone call. I want you to write them all down. And then I want you to look at who else in your business could have done that. 2 weeks later, he came back to me and said, I'm at 2 days. I'm at 2 days. He was so happy, the fact that his battery had lasted 2 days. See, that was taking a key performance indicator, the battery life, and providing a demonstrable business improvement, the life that the battery could last if he lost some of the non-value added stuff that he was asked to do by his people because he hadn't empowered them or he didn't understand the data that he was looking at. So that's the point I would like to leave everybody with. A lot of questions, a lot of things to look at, an incredible amount of things to talk to. And Mark's got my contact details, more than happy to stand up on the soapbox and discuss these forever and a day.
Doug, get back in that cage. God, we've unleashed something there, haven't we? My goodness. Wow, what a whistle-stop tour. What a way to start the week. Thank you very much indeed, Doug. Now, I appreciate we're on sort of deadline. We're on the time. What we'll do is we'll scoop up any questions that have come in. I'll give them to Doug and we'll address those. The conversations are all taking place over on the ARC 360 LinkedIn channel this week. So tune in there, get a chance to chat, have conversations with our corporate partners and our partners, and also carry on these discussions a little bit further. So we'll pick some snippets out of Doug's presentation today and carry on the conversation over there. Please do feel free to join in. Nobody should be shy in these things. It's just an idea and a methodology of sharing information. So huge thank you to Doug. What a great kickstart to the week. Really, really appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. You're like a caged animal. Goodness me. Let's hope we can all get out there very, very soon and enjoy ourselves again. So big thank you, Doug. Big thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Really appreciate your time. And we'll just see you out again with another little video clip of what we're all about. Thanks for joining us.